So let me just run through this list briefly of things that you can expect from developing project-based learning exercises for your class. There's going to be an increase in content knowledge. And that's one thing that we're really concerned about. We want students to know the content. But we also want them to be able to do several other things. For example, retain that information for a much longer period of time. If you compare students who hear the same information through a lecture versus through a project-based learning exercise, they're going to retain that information longer through the project-based exercise because they actually did it. You know, hearing it is one thing, doing it is another. So if I hear a word in another language and I practice using that word in a sentence, I'm going to remember that much longer than I would if I simply heard the word only. They're going to have a deeper conceptual understanding of the information. They're going to have a better practical knowledge. I mean, project-based learning is very practical. And what you're doing is you're asking students to take problems in your field. They're out there in the world someplace. You're bringing them into the classroom and asking them to solve them as a professional would. So they're going to gain a lot of practical knowledge and experience doing it. They're going to become more engaged. Your classes are going to become livelier. They're going to become more interactive. You're going to be on the spot more. Students are going to ask you more questions because you've stimulated their curiosity. If that's really what you want as a teacher, this is the method for you. If you simply want to have students sit there and bored to death, go back to the lecture. They're going to develop strong problem-solving skills. They're going to be more motivated. They're going to have a positive attitude about learning. In my classes, sometimes it's the first experience that these students have ever had with liking being in college. That's really important to me. I want them to like what they're doing. I want them to enjoy it. They're going to be able to analyze and evaluate information in new ways that they never ever dreamed they'd be able to. I love it at the course evaluation at the end of the semester when my students say, I was not looking forward to this class. I thought I was going to hate it, but I learned so much. I really learned to think differently in this class. They're going to be able to generate novel solutions to problems. In other words, they're going to see an increase in creativity. They're going to become self-regulated learners. In other words, they're going to have a better ability to control how they study. Now, because they're motivated for the first time, they're going to develop new study techniques. They're going to become smarter. They're going to become brighter. They develop stronger writing and oral skills. These are all things that employers want new employees to be able to do. One thing that I left off of this is that they're going to develop teamwork skills. And, you know, in most enterprises outside of here, people don't work in little cubicles isolated amongst themselves. They work in groups. They work in teams. And project-based learning teaches people to work better in teams. They're going to have more enjoyment of learning. And finally, the capacity to produce knowledge. We're going to create little mini-me's. You know, they're out there just like us. You know, they're interested in science. They're interested in becoming educated. They're interested in literature. They're interested in all sorts of things. They're more informed individuals. And so that's the way we really influence the next generation of students. And then we hope they go on to do the same thing. One last point I want to make before we take a break. I want to step back from all this. And I want to begin to think about what it means to be a good teacher. And I want to point out the consequences of being a good teacher. In other words, what is it that a good teacher really does to have an impact on his or her students? We think primarily in terms of content knowledge, and I really want to sort of have you disavow that. I want you to get beyond content, see a larger picture of what really goes on with students when we teach well. Because the influence we can have is almost infinite. It's profound. Let me mention just a few ways. First and foremost, most important, the learning becomes enhanced. They become better thinkers. They become deeper thinkers. They become more skilled thinkers. They become more interested in becoming a better thinker. They look for cognitive challenges to their thinking. They may, for the first time in their lives, see the relevance of what they're doing in school to what's going to happen after school. You know, how many times have you heard a student, at least I've heard students say this a lot, they say, I don't understand why I'm in this class. Well, what am I doing here? I don't understand the relevance of this class to me. And if you have not taught your students the relevance of your class to them in their lives, you have failed as a teacher. At a minimum, they should come away with understanding why this subject matter is so important to them. Why is it a required class? If you haven't done that, they haven't made that connection. And many students go through their entire college career without ever making that connection. It's so sad. So sad. They discover things about themselves that they never knew before. You open their eyes to who they are and who they can become. I don't care what the topic is. In psychology, I have it easy because we're talking about people. But what about chemistry? What about engineering? What about agriculture? Well, if you're doing your teaching right, people are going to understand more about themselves relevant to that topic. They're going to see exactly how that stuff connects to their life. And that's when they begin to have fun. They're going to become more engaged. Your classes are going to become more lively. You're going to have more discussion. You're going to have more arguments. And that's going to challenge you as a teacher. And that's how you get better, by having students out there who are asking questions that put you in a difficult situation. And you know as well as I do, the only way to become better at anything is to continually challenge yourself. If you're bored with your teaching, it's because you're not challenging your students enough. Because you're not getting them to ask you the right questions, to push you a little bit. Many times, students don't feel like they belong. They don't feel connected. A good teacher helps students feel that this is the right place. I belong at the university. I belong in this discipline. I belong in this department. I belong in this college. And I am proud to be a part of it. That's when you see this change in students, where students become proud to become students. Do you know the word self-efficacy? It's a psychological term. And it means to have confidence in certain situations. Now, I'm pretty self-confident as a teacher. I've been doing this all my life. I've got about 40 years of teaching. And I love it. I can't think of anything I would have rather done with my life than be a teacher. It's just been wonderful. But I hate dancing. Okay? I hate dancing. And my wife will drag me to dances, and I say, no, I don't want to go. I do not want to go because I see myself as a lousy dancer. I am really uncoordinated when it comes to this kind of thing. So I have a lot of self-efficacy as a teacher, but almost none as a dancer. Okay? I have none as a dancer. So what we want to do is instill in students a confidence in themselves that they can be confident thinkers. That they can become competence in literature or mechanics or in agriculture or in agronomy or something like that. We want to give them that sense of, I can do this. I can do this. Many students will change their lives, their careers, based on what they experience in our class. They will become enthused about it. And they'll say, I want to be just like you. I want to do what you do. That's when you know you've had a real impact. When students will say, you know, I didn't think I'd really like economics. But you know, after this class, I not only have discovered a passion for economics, but I'd like to be a teacher like you are. I'd like to share this field with other people. And last but not least, and I think this is way undersold in education, students should enjoy learning. Learning should be fun. It should be something we wake up in the morning, we're excited to go to class. And if you're a good teacher, that's how your students will feel. They will say, I can't wait to get to your class today. I don't want to miss it. Because they feel this sense of responsibility to you. There's so many great things that can happen when you're a good teacher. And so many things that don't happen when you're a bad teacher. I like to periodically stop and review what students are getting out of it, because it could be that they're not getting out of it what I intended them to get out of it. Okay? What I just asked you to do is what's called the 1-minute paper. You give students just a minute to write down, and you can do it during class or after class, and you sort of you're able to assess what they're getting out of it. And all you folks covered the main points that I wanted to cover in that first hour. So you did a great job. Really good. More broadly speaking, this is called a classroom assessment technique, or CAT, C-A-T. CAT. They're really, really effective if you really want some feedback from the students about what you're teaching. You know, when we collect feedback from students, mostly it's about, did they enjoy the class, was the teacher on time, those kinds of things. But those are the kinds of things that don't really matter when it comes to the subject matter and what students are getting out of it. So periodically, you know, ask your students to give you some information back. Sometimes I give them an extra credit point or two for doing this. Sometimes I just do it because I need the information. But it's a really good way to serve as a review. So thank you very much. We're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to go back and talk a little bit about the qualities that make a teacher good. And I want you to think about the best teacher you ever had. And what that person did that makes you think that this person was so good. In other words, what qualities or what behaviors did this teacher engage in that made this teacher so darn good? So I want you to think just now about it. I don't want you to talk about it at all. We're going to talk in just a second. But take just like 30 seconds and think about your best teacher and what they did that made you think that they were so darn good. And then I'm going to give you an assignment. I'm going to give you a project, actually. Okay? A very short project. Okay, you ready? Had a chance to think about it a little bit? I want you to get back in your groups, and I want you to take the information that I just asked you to think about, and I want you to use it to build the perfect teacher. What does the perfect teacher look like? What qualities does the perfect teacher have? So we'll take about 5-10 minutes to do this. So have at it and have fun with it. Build the perfect teacher. Hey folks, I know that this is running a little bit long, but I'm waiting for some paper to come because I'm going to ask you to take this kind of paper here and make a list for each of your groups, and then we're going to put it on the wall. And then the women can look at the women's side, men will look at the women's side. I'll go around both, and then I'll sort of we'll have a discussion about that afterwards. But I want everybody to see what everybody else is doing. So be patient with us. We're waiting for more paper. And just talk about whatever you want to talk about. Just talk about what you're going to do the weekend or whatever. It doesn't matter. So just have a good time. I have never done this kind of activity before, but I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed it. And I learned a lot about what you were thinking. I took a photograph of everybody's poster, and I'm looking forward to getting on the airplane and looking at those a little bit more closely later today. So thank you very much. What I'd like to do now is I'd like you to think about what you just did, and I'd like you to simply, in your own mind, come up with one word. And I know the ladies who created the one portion that says you really can't create a perfect teacher, which I thought was clever. I'd like you to think of one word anyway that sort of captures what you think is a key quality of an excellent teacher. So just think about that for just a couple of seconds. And then we're going to generate a list again, and then we're going to move on and talk about those qualities. Okay, folks, that's good. That's good. That's a good list. I think we could go on for a long, long time creating a list, but I think you've got the basic idea of what some of us think are the most important things. Let me just review the list real quickly. Somebody who's passionate, somebody who's knowledgeable, somebody who's punctual, somebody who's fair, data-driven, which means that you seek the truth, you want to teach the truth, someone who inspires or ignites the student, somebody who's a motivator, somebody who creates a very positive learning environment, people who are confident not only in their own ability as a teacher, but who can still instill confidence in their students, correct? Somebody who's a stable leader. No crazy people, okay? No crazy people, which leaves me out. And somebody who's a good facilitator. That's an interesting word because what's happened in the last 10 or 15 years is that we've moved from the so-called sage on the stage to the guide on the side. And that's what active learning is really more about. I really, really like the list, and I really like what you've generated outside the list. What I want to do now is take you to the research on this question. What makes an excellent teacher? So if you'll do me a favor, if you'll turn to page 3 in your handout. Page 3. I've worked up a sweat. You guys kept me busy. Okay, so page 3. It's 3. I have spent most of my career studying excellence in teaching. And I didn't want to miss an opportunity to talk a little bit about it today, before we get into our technique. What I have done is, through about 15 years of research, is created this instrument. This is called the Teacher Behavior Checklist. Let me tell you a little bit about how it developed. I was asked by my department head in about 1998 if I would take over the training of graduate students to become college teachers. And so I thought to myself, well, in order to do that, I need to know something about what it means to be a good teacher. So I went to the literature, and I started reading the journal articles on good teaching and looking at the books on good teaching. And what I found was simply list after list after list that would identify what we've done here. Just a list. Just created a list. Now notice I've created another list here, but it's different than the kinds of lists we've created. What I did was this. I took a group of students, a couple hundred students, and I said, tell me what the qualities are of your most effective or most excellent teachers, just like we did here. They could list 3. So I took what they generated, and there was a lot of overlap. Like when you take a look at the list, there's a lot of overlap. And there were 47 distinct qualities that they came up with. That's a lot. 47 is a lot. So I took another group of 200 or 300 students, and I said, here's a list of adjectives that your student colleagues have generated. What I want you to do now is tell me the behaviors that go with those qualities. So for example, I might say to this gentleman here, you need to be fairer in your teaching. And then the question is, well, what do you mean by that? What does it mean to be fair? Or I might take one of the ladies and I say, well, you need to have more confidence in your teaching. You need to be able to instill confidence in your students, and you'll say, but what does that mean? This tells you sort of a quality, but it doesn't tell you how to behave. Teaching is behavior. It's a set of skills that translate into behavior. Both verbal behavior, psychological behavior, how you interact with others, and nonverbal behavior. So I asked those second group of students to generate 3 behaviors each that would identify someone as being passionate. What does it mean to be passionate? Does it mean to come to class and say, hey, I'm really excited today, we're going to have a lot of fun? That is not what passion is, according to the students. So the list you have before you has a quality listed on the left-hand side, and this is in alphabetical order, not order of importance, and a list of behavioral anchors to go with it. So we use this document 2 ways. One is to evaluate teachers, particularly new teachers. So if I look at a teacher and I can have students assign a number to each one of these from 1 to 5, 1 meaning that the behaviors are always present, 5 meaning that they're never present, and then a range in between, I can use this to determine where a teacher's deficiencies are, what areas they need to improve in. And not only can I then identify those areas that are in need of improvement, but I can also prescribe certain behaviors for them to engage in to improve their teaching. So this has become a very valuable document, and it's been adopted by over 100 American universities for evaluation of teaching. The second thing is, I can use it as a research tool. And how we do that is really interesting, and it's really been fun. I love what I've been able to do with this. What we do is, we go around to different groups of people, and we say, which of these are the most important? Sort of like I asked you to do, what's one word? But I allow them to assign a top 10. So take a look at the list and ask yourself, just to yourselves, which of these are the 10 most important qualities / behaviors of an excellent or master teacher? Okay. This document has been translated into 15 different languages, including Arabic. If you take a look at the next page, we have the Arabic version of it. That's page 4.